Good evening. Welcome to another wonderful, exciting edition of Soul in a Bourbon. Once again, you act surprised.
Glenn's excited. Once again, we're here on location at the Gibsons. Thank you for allowing us into your home. Glenn, what are we doing tonight?
Tonight we are doing Old Carter Straight Rye Whiskey Batch 10.
Glenn?
Yes.
Who is Old Carter?
It's a passion project started by a couple, Mark and Sherry Carter, who actually are in the wine business in Napa Valley.
Carter Cellars. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So, if you are a wine drinker, you may be familiar, but they have started a distillery.
You know, it's interesting. In the last couple of years, with the increase in popularity, obviously, of bourbon and distilled brown spirits, we've seen a lot of this, haven't we?
Sure. Actually, absolutely. And I said it's a distillery. Actually, they do not distill their own spirits.
So it's just a brand, right?
It's a brand. They source, they blend bourbon and rye.
Yep.
They source from what I understand, MGP. Here in Indiana.
Love MGP.
I believe they've sourced from Dickel in Tennessee.
Okay.
And they've developed quite a good reputation.
Yeah. So if you're watching at home and you're thinking, you know, you may be at your screen and being like, yeah, you know, what is all this mystery bourbons and stuff like that? And it is somewhat mystery bourbon, right?
It is. And honestly, I couldn't find a whole lot of information on this bottle. This is, as a matter of fact, it's Old Carter Batch 10.
Straight rye.
It's a straight rye released in 2022.
From MGP.
From
which
MGP.
Is Midwest Grain Products in Lawrenceburg, Indiana, which is basically a bourbon factory or a whiskey factory or a distilled spirits factory. And before you're like, well, why would you just buy stuff from a factory? Just because they're producing a lot of it doesn't mean it is not very, very good. And a lot of the brands that you've come to know and love in these last 5, 6, 7 years may have been MGP and you just not know it.
Correct. And a lot of people shit on MGP. I don't. I love MGP.
I love MGP.
There's a reason that people source their whiskey from MGP.
Yeah.
Because they're really, really good at what they do. So This particular bottle is 116.6 proof. It's a small batch. It's bottle number 2124 out of
2532.
So there are only 2,532 bottles of this made. Usually we don't like to do a whole lot of reviews on bottles that aren't widely available, but sometimes we do.
You know, this one is more about the brand and talking about kind of the state of the bourbon economy and what you're going to see out there in the market. So let's do some pouring.
Yeah, you do some pouring. So this particular release is available in Kentucky, California, DC, Maryland, Delaware, Louisiana, Georgia, New York, and New Jersey. So it's a pretty widely released product. You can't find it in every state, but that's a pretty good list of states where you'll be able to find this.
Absolutely.
And I'm kind of really anxious to try this because you and I both love ryes, and
specifically MGP ryes.
Yes,
Indiana ryes.
David's pour.
Shall we
ready to?
Shall we nose?
Yeah.
And we'll kind of nose while we talk, and because there's a lot more to say about.
That's really dark.
It's really dark,
especially for a rye. So
puts a nice ring around the glass. I mean, it's oily than I anticipated. More oily than I anticipated.
Yeah, it's very very viscous. Sticks to the glass. It's not. It really just kind of stays there, doesn't it? It's got that
spicy,
fruity
rye funk.
A lot of fruit on the nose. Apple.
Nose is kind of muted at first, and then as it kind of sits in the glass, now I'm starting to pick up some things.
Yeah, it wasn't really, I wouldn't say muted for me.
Maybe it's me.
To me, it's just a really nice nose. A really nice classic
rye. Yeah.
Fruity, a little bit of the funk.
I am really surprised by the
Baking
color
spice.
on that.
Yeah,
It's really, really
it's
deep amber color
super
for
dark.
cheers. Drinking time.
Cheers. That's really damn good.
I like that a lot.
That is really good. David's over here laughing at me at my face after
That's
I
really
tasted
good.
this.
So we're going to stop the episode. We're going to finish this bottle off. Follow us on Instagram or whatever. Good night.
Sowing a bourbon. Have a good night. Go.
Everything you want in a great barrel proof rye. Big baking spice up front. I love that minty note, that kind of spearmint note that you get in an older rye. You don't get a lot. Typically, it's something reserved for kind of those 10-year and up, which makes me think that this is maybe, it's a batched. It's not a single barrel, but there is definitely, in my opinion, some older rye cask in there because that spearmint really comes through in a nice way, kind of right in the middle.
Yeah, it's not, that note isn't really super strong. This almost tastes more like a bourbon to me than a rye. It's got the nice rye spice. It's got the fruit, and a lot of times I pick up like a apple note in a rye. It's
And
got that.
This is why I love so into bourbon, because I can get video of Glenn being so wrong. It's just so rye, it's not even fair. I love everything about this. Sweet, spicy on the front, that nice spearmint.
Exactly what I just said.
Crisp finish. There's nothing bourbon-y about this. It's rye, true and true. But I can see how a bourbon drinker would love this particular bottle as well.
Don't listen to him.
You can shake your head all you want.
100%
I'm just going to
correct
drink it.
in my analysis. No, it's really good.
It's great. That's really good, and I mean it's crazy how after I had swirled it around in the glass, I was like, it kind of clings to the glass a little bit. Now that I've drank it a little bit, has a really great mouthfeel, and it's very oily. I mean, it coats the glass. Man, that's really nice. I really like that.
It's a really well-rounded.
Yeah.
I started to say bourbon.
Rye. It's rye. It's everything. I mean, it's a really great rye offering at 116 proof.
There's something, and I'm really struggling to just kind of put my finger on what that flavor is. It's kind of almost like a fruit pie, the apple's there, but there's something a little bit more
like a marzipan,
darker.
See, I get a sweeter instead of a darker.
Really?
Yeah, it's really, but man, it's what you want in a rye, and we talk about this a lot. If you're going to be a bourbon or a rye or a distilled spirit, be interesting. This is interesting. It's what you want out of a barrel proof rye, which is spicy and sweet, and that spearmint finish, and crisp, and just a really nice rye offering.
It really sticks with you too. It's got that.
It does.
Got the nice Kentucky hug.
That warming,
we'll call
kind
it
of
the
all the way
Indiana
down.
hug.
Yeah,
since it's
and
NGP.
it's not overwhelming. It is a little at 116 proof. It's a little hot, but
but
not
for a rye.
you're
I don't
drinking
think, for 116 proof rye.
Yeah.
I don't think it's
It's
all
good.
that hot.
So, Glenn, what's the MSRP on this bottle?
I don't know, Charlie.
Well, from what I have seen in the market, and because Old Carter is such a limited release, their bottles usually retail for upwards of around $200.
I did a little research earlier, looking around online just to see, what they're selling for online, and you're looking at upwards of $500. I don't know what the suggested price is.
Yeah. So I've seen
I was
some
not
bottles.
able to find that.
Yeah, I've seen some bottles at retail in the past, and they usually retail around $200. And that begs the question of, what are you paying for? And many of us bourbon drinkers, when you walk into your local liquor store or your Kroger or your Publix or your Walmart, and you see what the heck is that? I've never seen that brand. I've never seen that bottle. I've never seen, what is this? And it kind of speaks to kind of what we talked about at the beginning of the episode is since the rise in popularity of bourbon and rise and distilled brown water, there's been a lot of new offerings. So what does that mean for the market and you as a consumer? And I really don't have a good answer for you. It's kind of just the new bourbon economy. Yeah. And I feel like this is what every episode ends up referencing, but there's no way around it. This is what we have.
Look, if you like it, if you can afford it, buy it. If you don't, don't.
Right. Yeah.
This bottle, would I pay $200 for this bottle? Maybe.
It's a
would
solid.
I pay $500 for it? No.
It's a solid maybe at $199.99. If I get it like a $5 gift card after purchase or something like that, maybe I'd think about it. That was a joke, but that's okay. But it really just it's tough out there because there is some really great bottles. But like Glenn said, a lot of these are very limited releases. If you didn't live in one of the 7 or 8 states that he mentioned, you ain't finding this. And if you don't have an extra $200 to spend for alcoholic brown water, then you ain't buying this. So it really just goes to kind of show you that it's a strange new world out there.
Yeah, I'd pay $150 for it all day long.
I don't know. I'm an idiot. I may pay $200 for that. This is really good.
I'm not saying I wouldn't pay $200 for it if I could find it for that.
Well,
maybe I would.
Maybe you would. But this is the whole thing, is the demand and why, if you're watching this and you're like, I keep hearing MGP and I keep hearing them brought up, and what is that? So MGP out of Lawrenceburg, Indiana, Midwest Grain Products is basically just a factory that just makes distilled spirits. And when companies can't keep up with demand, he's shaking his head. I don't know why he is.
He's going on his MGP.
I'm not going on my MGP, but if you're a savvy consumer and you understand that there are brands being created and you can't just wake up and poop out some 8-year-old bourbon, almost got him to come out his nose. That would have been an expensive experience. But it's got to come from somewhere. And where does it come from? It comes from Tullahoma. It comes from MGP, or it comes from Heaven Hill or Barton or Buffalo Trace, but those guys don't have a lot of leftover hyper-aged stuff to sell to people. So you buy it where you can.
The more you talk and the more I drink this, the more I like it.
It's really good. I really like this. So
I'm getting like an orange, almost like a burnt orange flavor.
Yeah,
on this now.
like a burnt orange peel or something. Totally. Yeah, that was
for
very
sure
insightful. I should talk more and he should think more. So, I don't know if we have any great answers on what is worth it and what is not. I think that will continue to be personal preference for you, the viewer
what
and
it's
consumer.
worth?
Whatever
exactly what someone's willing to pay for.
Absolutely. And what you think you're willing to pay for it. So now I will tell you this. There used to be a lot more MGP, older barrel proof stuff in the market. And there used to be a lot more little startup brands. And I'll tell you a little story. Story time with Charlie. Quick story. So I was in Columbia, Tennessee, and I stopped in a liquor store and I'm starting to just kind of peruse and look, and I find a bottle called Wheeler's Raid. It's a little, exactly. And I'm thinking, okay, this could be something because I've never heard of it. Mm-hmm. And I get it. And it's like, oh,
sounds like a Civil War reference.
It's exactly what it is. So I grab the bottle and I turn it around and it says bottled in Tennessee, distilled in Indiana. And my powers of deduction say, I'm going to bet this is MGP. So I flip it over and I look, and it's a single barrel aged in a sherry cask at barrel proof, age stated 7 years old. You want to guess how much that bottle was?
$20.
It was $64.99.
I was off, way off.
But do you want to guess that I bought it? I absolutely bought it because it was age stated, it was MGP, it was aged in a sherry cask. And I was like, yes, absolutely. And I told the liquor store owner at the time, I was like, this is distilled in Indiana, this is MGP. And he had no idea. I was like, anytime you see Indiana on the back, it's almost an assumption for MGP. So when you're looking at those bottles, and if it's a mystery bottle, if it says distilled in Indiana, it's probably MGP.
If you can hear the lapping sounds in the background, we poured a little bit of the Old Carter in David's dog's bowl over here, and
We did not do
she
that.
approves.
I'm just going to tell you, we didn't do that. We did not pour that for a dog.
Charlie, speaking of...
We used Jim Beam.
I'm sorry?
We used Jim Beam for the dog. We didn't give the dog that.
Speaking of Jim Beam, I wanted to point something out about this bar and the shelves you see behind you. One of the things that is really unique about Mr. Gibson and Miss Gibson's bar here is all of these shelves came from Jim Beam, came from a still house or
Rack house.
a rack house at Jim Beam.
So that's pretty awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Charlie,
Glenn.
what are we doing with this Old Carter? Are we going to rate it?
You know, obviously we can't drink it or sink it because it's not our bottle, it's our host's. So I think we should rate it.
All right. Who wants to start?
I'll start. I will give this a solid 7.5 out of 10. And I will tell you why.
Okay.
The retail, it's hard to get over, $200 plus, but it's very good. If it was $50 less, $100 less, it's an 8, 8.5, 9 out of 10, but it's hard to get over that limited release aspect.
I would, yeah. I'm not going to take into account the price. I'm just going to rate it on on
flavor alone.
on the flavor alone, and I'm going to give it a 8.75.
I get it. It's very good. It's very good. But
And I will argue with you and disagree with you until I'm blue in the face. While it definitely is a rye, and all the rye comes through, I feel like there's a lot of bourbon flavor in that bottle, which I really like.
what Glenn doesn't know, and what you are just now learning, and he's got that deer in the headlights because he doesn't know what I'm going to say,
I don't.
is that coming up in a future episode very soon, I have two single barrel proof MGP ryes ready for us to review.
Sounds interesting.
It is not interesting. It's going to be phenomenal.
All right, Charlie, let's wrap this up.
Like and subscribe.
Join the Facebook group Sowing the Bourbon, Instagram Sowing the Bourbon.
Follow
TikTok,
Glenn on
Whiskey
TikTok,
Realtor.
Whiskey Realtor, not the Whiskey Realtor. It's
And
Whiskey
until next
Realtor.
time, and once again, thank you to David and Crispy.
Crispy.
I'm getting crispy.
Thank you to our wonderful hosts for allowing us to be here and Glenn to drink his
Absolutely.
bourbon. And as always, Glenn, what do we tell?
Keep your bung roll tight.
Good night, everybody. Glenn, who is Old Carter?
Old Carter is a man.
Are you okay?
All right, let's do this.
No, I gotta have a minute.
I had something
Old
funny
Carter
I
is
was
a
gonna
man.
I was gonna say.
Glenn's had 4 bourbons and everything has come off the rails.
He's butt hurt.
I will not be ignored.